Hello and welcome back to Monson Made This. My name is Michael and I cook vegan food, so if you want more vegan content and recipes, you should click that subscribe button below. Also give this video a thumbs up while you're down there. Welcome back, and thanks to those of you that have recently subscribed to my channel. I had a cauliflower wing video from a long time ago start to take off. Lots of new subscribers, so welcome. Thank you all for joining. Today's recipe video is something that I actually made a couple of weeks ago. If you saw the last video for corn arancini or Instant Pot corn risotto, I mentioned a party that I had gone to. Well, in addition to the corn arancini that I made, I also made this delicious sweet potato poblano corn chowder, and that is what I'm going to be showing you today. It's going to be all happening on the stovetop, lots of good fresh ingredients. It's a really great sort of seasonal transitional recipe. It has corn, which is more summery, sweet potato, which is more fall, so it's kind of a great recipe to make this time of year, especially as things are cooling off. Nice, delicious, comforting, warm bowl of soup. So everything's gonna be happening behind me at the stove, so let's move over there and start assembling this delicious chowder. Hello and welcome to my stove. I have a Dutch oven here because the amount of soup that we're making actually ended up feeding a party of 12. I would say it's 6 full servings, or it's good for a couple people for a few days. So I have my Dutch oven here to medium-high heat. I have some olive oil in there. You could use vegan butter as well. And to that I'm gonna be adding a whole onion. Now, just a slight disclaimer on this recipe as I add the next ingredient, which is some diced carrot. So the full recipe is on monsonmadethis.com. That's where all of the amounts and the full list of ingredients is going to be. When I wrote that recipe, I didn't actually add carrots. I'll probably add it because I haven't published that recipe. Anyways, carrots are in there, but one ingredient that you will not see in there, that you won't see here today, is a red bell pepper. I just didn't have one on hand. So you'll see red bell pepper added at this stage as well. So add that red bell pepper. It's only about a half of one, but I think it does add some nice flavor. The carrot's gonna add a decent bit of sweetness as well, but red bell pepper you'll see on the recipe. You're not gonna see it here today. Just gonna stir this around a little bit, and I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper as well. So this is gonna happen really in 2 stages. There's gonna be, I guess, 3 stages. There's going to be the veggies that are going to be sautéed here in the beginning. There's going to be veggies that are going to be simmered with the broth. We're going to then use an immersion blender to kind of blend half of it and make it a little bit creamy. And then we're going to add some things at the very end. And that's really important with this recipe, is layering those flavors as well as controlling the texture of things by adding them at various times of the cooking process. So I'm going to let this go just for another minute or 2, just until the carrots and onion are softened. And then we'll start adding the next set of ingredients. The next thing I'm going to add is poblano chili, because this is a sweet potato poblano, I can't remember the name of it, chowder. I was like, bisque, stew, no, chowder. So because it is a sweet potato poblano chowder, we needed to add poblano, and I just chopped that up. Again, half of this is going to be blended in the immersion blender, so I have everything between like 1/4 and 1/2 inch, but it's going to be broken down quite a bit. If you don't like big chunks of stuff, don't worry, it's going to be tamed down with the blending process. So the poblano chili here, not too spicy. I do want to add a little bit of spice though, because I like some heat. So I'm going to add some red pepper. You could also add jalapeno, other types of spicier peppers if you'd like. I really like the kind of like greeny, peppery flavor that poblano adds, but it doesn't add any heat, so I do want to kick that up a little bit. This is going to just saute for another minute or so, and then we'll add the next set of ingredients. The last veggie I'm going to add at this stage is garlic, and that's 2 cloves of garlic that are roughly minced. Again, this is going to just kind of stir in here for another minute. Now, for the most part, this recipe is gluten-free. However, I am going to be adding some all-purpose flour here as a thickening agent. If you wanted to keep this fully gluten-free, then use a gluten-free flour to do that. I like the added thickness that the flour gives it. If you wanted to avoid that altogether, the sweet potato will thicken it up quite a bit, so you don't have to worry about it. But that's just an easy way to make what should be mostly gluten-free recipe fully gluten-free. And speaking of that flour, I'm just going to add that now. 1/4 cup here. Again, full ingredients are on monsonmadethis.com. And I just want to stir the flour in here, cook off a little bit of the rawness, get it distributed. You don't have to worry about any sort of lumps or anything. Like I said, we're going to be blending, so not that big of a deal. And you just want to do this for, like I said, maybe a minute or so. Already smells incredible. I love the pepper smell. I love the onion smell. Just a nice tease of what's to come with this chowder. After the flour has cooked in for a minute, I am adding 6 cups of vegan broth. This is a mushroom bouillon flavored broth. So that's gonna go in, as well as the sweet potatoes. In addition to the red bell pepper, I had originally used orange sweet potatoes. I realized as I was about to start cooking today, or as I was cutting these up, that they are not orange sweet potatoes. These are white. It's cool, same delicious flavor. It's just not gonna be as vibrantly orange. And the last thing for right now is some nutritional yeast. This is just gonna give a nice savory, slightly cheesy flavor. That way it just has a nice richness to our chowder. So I'm going to stir this just a little bit. I am going to keep the heat where it is, about medium high. I'm gonna bring it up to a simmer, and then this is gonna cook for just about 15 minutes until the sweet potato is softened. As I was about to put the lid on, I forgot I wanted to add this. This is the cob from the corn we'll eventually use. 2 cobs, just sort of broken in half. And this is just going to impart a nice kind of corny flavor to the broth, because it is, you know, a corn chowder. So those are gonna go in there, and just, we'll take them out obviously before we blend and serve. But again, it's just gonna impart a nice corn flavor to this chowder. This has been simmering for about 15 minutes. I didn't ever bring it up to like a full boil. I put the lid on just to retain some of the liquid there so it didn't all evaporate. And what I want to do now is just taste one of the sweet potatoes, one of the larger ones, and just make sure that it is in fact cooked. Perfect, not too soggy or waterlogged. Next thing I want to do is remove the corn cobs, and then we are going to use the immersion blender to blend about half of this. It'll make it nice and creamy. It'll break down some of the bigger pieces, but we're not going to go all the way so that we still have some texture. So this is my immersion blender. It just allows me to blend in the pot without having to transfer anything to a blender. By the way, I've turned the stove off. If you do not have an immersion blender, what you're gonna do is take about half of it out, carefully transfer it to a blender, very carefully blend that, and then return it to the pot. So having an immersion blender really helps. I'm gonna kind of just go by eye and by feel. When I feel like it's about halfway blended, I'll stop. I'll just kind of check for texture. I want it to be creamy, but again, still have a bit of texture in it. So let's go. So I let it blend for maybe 15-20 seconds, and I'm just kind of checking for texture. Just see it's fairly creamy, but there are still some bits in there that are just gonna make it enjoyable to eat. So this looks good. It's time to add the final ingredients. Now that it is partially blended, I'm going to turn the stove back on to probably just about medium heat, and I'm gonna add the last ingredients. Because this is a sweet potato poblano corn chowder, we are going to add corn. This is 2 cobs that have just been removed. Obviously, you can just use frozen if that's all you have. I'm reserving a little bit just so I don't overdo it here. And then I'm gonna add coconut milk here. This was kind of adopted from a non-vegan recipe that used regular potatoes, and it called for heavy cream being added at the end. I added coconut milk, full-fat coconut milk. I thought it added a really great texture. It doesn't really shout coconut. It doesn't really read as, oh my God, there's coconut in here. It just adds a really nice texture. And you could use a soy milk, I guess, or you could use like a cashew cream if you want, if you don't like coconut at all. So that's in here. Next thing, green onion. And I'm gonna add just about 2 green onions. And I like adding it in here just so it imparts some flavor. Now I'm going to bring this back to a simmer, and I'm gonna let it go maybe just about 5 minutes. That way the flavors have a chance to meld together. The corn can kind of relax a little bit so it's not super raw. We'll taste for seasoning, and then we're ready to serve. So it came up to a simmer, simmered for just a couple of minutes. I want to taste it for seasoning, even though I've been kind of tasting it along the way. I did use a salted broth, so I don't think I'm going to have to add too much salt, if any. I think it's great. It does need some black pepper, so I'm going to add that. That's pretty much it. One thing, Ben is looking at this and said that it looked a little bit thinner than he remembered. Now, when I served this or brought it to the party a couple of weeks ago, I actually made it the day ahead of time and then refrigerated it overnight and just reheated it in an Instant Pot when I was there. So it will thicken up as it sits. I think it's a nice kind of velvety texture at this point, but it will thicken up if you refrigerate it overnight. All right, well, let's head over to the island. I will dish myself up a bowl, add some final garnish, and then it's time for me to eat. One thing I noticed as I was dishing this up was just the fragrance of corn, which I am obsessed with right now. Let's give this a taste. Yeah, that corn flavor really is just like so imparted into the chowder. It's incredible. The sweet potato just ups that corniness. The carrot adds to it. Again, picture it with red bell pepper. I do think that adds quite a bit as well. Such a delicious chowder. Ben, who's behind the camera, doesn't love soup. In fact, I would say, I'm sorry to speak for you, but soup is his probably least favorite food category.
It's usually boring.
He finds it boring. He actually ate this at the party, loved it, and he's probably going to be eating a bowl as soon as he puts down the camera. So you have to give this a try. Definitely give this video a thumbs up, because I know when you do try this that you are going to love it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I will be back very soon with another recipe video. So thanks again. Bye.